Hello, I'm going to show you now gradient maps in Photoshop CS3. Gradient maps are very handy. There's 5 really good tricks you can do with gradient maps. I'm going to show you the first 2 of those, which is restricting gamut. Now here you can see on a bear's head the shading goes from a very pale tone here to a very dark tone here. The palest we're allowed to go is predefined by Repro and it's 2% K. That's in this little colour swatch here. These are my Tatty Teddy swatches. The darkest any shading on the bear, that's excluding the line work, is allowed to go as 43% K. Go any darker and it doesn't really print very well. Not on textiles anyway. So that's that little swatch there. And you can imagine that an illustration like this might well exceed those 2 extremes, either being too light in one area or too dark in another. So let's imagine that we've mucked up this drawing. I'm going to just make it really bad here by spraying some dark blue right over the shading layer there. And there we go. You can see not only is it the wrong colour, but also tonally it's way too dark there, and we need to correct that. We're going to correct that using a gradient map. Must use the right terminology in these videos. So Command D, deselect that. Looking down the bottom of the layers palette, there's the tau symbol. Click on that, you get the adjustment layers options coming up, because a gradient map is another adjustment layer. Click on gradient map here, you get this dialog coming up, and that's showing a gradient which, because it's currently got dark blue as a foreground colour and black as a background colour in the panels here, well, that's what you've got there. So double click on that. You want to change that, and you do that by double clicking the little tag just here. That's the leftmost extreme on the gradient we'll be using. So you can select the darkest colour here from your swatches that you want the shading to be. Click OK to that. Double click on the right hand one for the other extreme of the gradient. Click on the lightest colour that you want this gradient to extend to, and then click OK to confirm that. And you can see here it's not looking quite right. Now to correct that, to get a much better result, I'm not sure why you have to do this, but you can slide this little tag here up to 50%, and you can see it's exactly halfway because of this little dialog here, this little box that shows you 50%. Click OK, and you click OK to that, and there you go. Now it doesn't look right, it doesn't correct the shading, but it is now, all of that shading, however awful it looks, is within the acceptable range of values. So it goes from, just get my mouse pointer by there, it goes from 2% K here, where it's lightest, to 43% K here, and no darker, where it's darkest. Just to show you what that's achieved, if I turn this off, it still looks like that underneath the adjustment layer. You can either use either clip this gradient to the layer below using Command Alt and G. There you go. Or you could maybe fill in this little handy layer mask that comes with the adjustment layer when you create it. I'll get rid of that because I'm not going to use that. But because it's clipped to the shading layer, you can see that the gradient map here doesn't affect any of the rest of the artwork. It could do if you wanted it to, but that's quite a nice way of showing how it can be restricted to the selections you want and nowhere else. So that's that. But before I go, one more really cool trick. This is the second of the cool gradient map tricks that we've got to show you here. Actually, dither might be handy. If you select dither, it just makes a nicer blend, basically. But yeah, double click on the thumbnail there, and then double click on the gradient that comes up. Oh, no, don't want that one. That's better. Right, now here's the gradient editor again. You slide that middle tag right over to the right and maybe play around with the positions of these two fellas, these little tags here, a little bit. Click OK, and there you go, it's toon shading. So if you start with an airbrushed object and you wonder what it would look like if instead you'd toon shaded it, and that's what this is called, then that's a quick way to have a little preview of that. It may not be quite as good as you'd get if you toon shaded it by hand from the start, but it's done a pretty good job. So that's it for today. I hope to show you more really cool gradient map tricks later. Thank you.